Life is a highway, said Tom Cochrane. Sheryl Crow said every day is a winding road. And I will admit that just last week I was driving on John Denver's country roads in West Virginia. You know, it's true, no matter where you are or what you're riding on, if you've got good suspension, the journey is a lot more enjoyable. Today, we're talking shocks with Shop Owner. Hi again, everybody. I'm Doug Kaufman, editor of Shop Owner, and today I'm joined by Mason O'Hara from Koni. You know, Koni is a premier manufacturer of performance and adjustable shocks with product lines for consumer automotive, railway, defense, recreational vehicles, bus, trucks, trailers, as well as motorsports and racing. Mason, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You know, we'll get into the coverage for all those vehicles in a little bit, but first, give us an overview of Koni's history.
Sure. So Koni has been around for over 150 years now. We started making shock absorbers in the early 1930s. What Koni is known for really in the automotive world is our adjustable shock absorbers. Those, I believe, we started manufacturing around the mid-40s. So from there, you know, a lot of technologies, new developments, new applications. The shocks themselves are still manufactured in the Netherlands, just a few miles from where they originally started, over those many years ago. A funny story is that Koni actually started as a leather factory, developing leather works, saddles for horses before the automobile was even around. So if you think about it, Koni was in the suspension business before there were actually cars with suspension, as the saddle being the suspension to your horse.
You know, that's an old story in the automotive industry where they transitioned into something that's become relatable to the automotive industry. What kind of, and that history is amazing, very long, very in depth. What kind of changes have you witnessed since you've been with Koni?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, in the product development, the engineering, the manufacturing of shocks, obviously Koni wants to support any vehicle out there that we have access to make parts for, to better the ride, to improve, the customer driving experience. But the biggest thing I would see is just new technologies. We've recently purchased a 3D printer where we can build prototypes for small piece parts. Obviously we're not 3D printing full shock absorbers, but small piece parts, things like spring seats, attachment brackets, things that maybe could take several months to get a prototype of. We can have one of our guys in engineering draw up the bracket, draw up a special washer or a special attachment feature, and have one produced, test fit in just a matter of a few hours.
Can it be used for actual fit and function, or is it just only for testing?
Just for testing, fitment. After we would make a 3D model, we would then send it out, have them actually professionally machined and made, and then use that in a final production piece.
Sure. Really cool changes that you've gone through. What about the customers? Are they more educated these days? Is there so much more information that they're less educated? Either way, does it make it easier or harder for you to deal with?
It's definitely a good combination of both. So yeah, with the world of Facebook and forums, and you can get your information from so many different places. We talked about YouTube earlier. Anyone can go online and find a DIY of how to install a shock on your specific car. I mean, maybe you've got one car, you can probably find a video of someone doing an installation of whatever part it may be. So yeah, definitely the customer is much more informed, but also there's some information out there that gets a little bit skewed. And if you ever have any questions, it's probably best just give us a call. We can talk through it and we can discuss it and kind of go from there.
Let's talk about some of those calls that you may have got. Any funny stories that you can recall from a customer who just didn't have things quite right?
I can't say that I get that type of call often, but there's several calls that you'll get that will say, how should I adjust these, or what tools do I need, or how long is it going to take? And a lot of times I tell them, look, if you need to answer those questions, it's probably best have someone professional do the installation for you. It's easier, the job's going to be right, it's going to be safe and manner, so when you pull that car out of the garage, it's not only going to be safe, it's going to perform as it was intended to.
Sure. So, where are things trending towards customer expectations? Do they expect premium performance these days from even the basic vehicle? Can they get it?
Yeah, and that's what Koni really prides ourselves on, is providing the customer with a tailored shock that's going to give them the performance they're looking for at the price point they're looking for, whether it's an OE replacement shock, you're just looking to replace some shocks on, your daily driver that, needs a little bit of a pick-me-up, whether you're looking for, an adjustable shock like our sport damper that you can adjust and fine-tune to maybe you daily drive it back and forth to work, but you also take it out on the weekends and hit some cruises, or like you said, hit some back roads, or maybe even you take it, it's a track car or a dedicated track car. We've got options for all of those different vehicles. So just giving the customer that tailored experience is what Koni really prides itself on.
So I mentioned a list of products that you have coverage for, vehicle types that you have coverage for. Let's get into a little bit of that. How much technical knowledge crosses over from, say, the motorsports side of the business to heavy duty or RV? How similar are the products and how different are they as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot of similarities within the products. Now, one thing about Koni is that each and every single application is specific to your application. So whether you drive a Honda, or you drive a Ford, or you drive a Chevy, we've done testing specifically those cars, multiple revalves of the shock to find exactly what our engineers decide, hey, this is how the car should ride, this is how the car should handle. So they really dig deep into, again, tailoring that ride, making it specific. But as far as the technology inside, the way the shocks work and function is very similar, what you're going to see on an automobile or an RV. Now, we do have different technologies, like our FSD, which is the frequency selective damping technology that we use in both automotive and RV applications. It's just a hydraulic amplifier basically that can read road frequency and adapt in real time. So not something that you're adjusting, but on smoother roads, gives you a much firmer ride for better control. Rougher rides, rougher roads, give you a little less damping force, but it helps to filter out those harsher imperfections for just a superior ride quality.
Now, is that technology available for X vehicle, or is it specific to certain vehicles?
Yeah, the FSD can be put in any shock absorber that we're allowed. It's got enough suspension torque. We can use the FSD technology in just about anything as far as automotive and RV applications. There are similar things for bus, trucks, and trains that we do, but the FSD is mainly used for RV and automotive.
Interesting. And we had talked earlier about some of the rebuilding things that you do. What kind of work goes into rebuilding a shock?
So the rebuild process, it's pretty straightforward. Once we have the shock in hand, we can put it on a dyno, or the shop that's going to rebuild it for you. They'll do a dyno test on the shock, see how it's actually performing, see what they're starting with. Complete disassembly, we can rebuild, repair, replace, any shock seals, any of the wear parts within the shock, piston bands, O-rings, the guide seals. Anything inside the shock can be replaced, serviced, made like new. Even if you've got an old shock with a bent shock shaft or anything, some damage to a shock. A lot of times those can be replaced as well. Can fully rebuild the shock to basically like new condition. We can sandblast it, repaint it, relabel it. Basically look like a shock of any age, look like it just came right off the production line.
And I imagine that's not necessarily a great option for every application. Sometimes it's just better to replace them. But some of the examples, especially in heavy duty industries, sure, that's a great option. But even for automotive, you mentioned a few cases where people do want to rebuild shocks.
Yeah, absolutely. So Koni is actually an OE shock option that was on early Ferraris, some early Ford Mustangs, the GT350. So those are all Koni equipped, and a lot of times those shocks are stamped with a production date code specific to that car. So if the year range, the part number on that shock is something that you want to keep your car 100% original looking, we can rebuild that shock, and then all of your date codes, parts are matching, and that shock in your car is still of the OE version of itself.
Sure, sure. You mentioned that if customers have too many questions, your recommendation is see a professional.
Absolutely.
So, what recommendations do you have for professionals on dealing with today's shock absorber questions from their customers?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and if they have questions, just give us a call. You can talk to me personally. If you call Coney, chances are I'm going to be the one to pick up the phone. But just normal questions, decide what the customer is looking for. Why are they, if they are changing the shocks, what are your ideas or the reasons behind changing the shock? Are you looking for a performance shock? Are you looking for just an OE type of replacement? Something with a little bit better valving, a little better handling. What's the car used for? How do you drive it? What are you looking to get out of this shock change?
Sure, sure. And you mentioned calling. Are there other ways that shops can meet with you to talk questions in person?
Yeah, sure. So we attend a lot of events throughout the year. We do a lot of stuff on the East Coast, a few shows on the West Coast, but we attend the Hyperfest every year. We attend some Import Alliance shows, Mustang Week. We hang out there for that week. LS Fest. So there's a number of different shows that we have. We put up display tents and hang out for the week and just talk cars with guys.
Sure, sure. Do you have online resources that people can access for information?
Yeah, so we've got our website, coney-na.com. We have a YouTube page that is YouTube/Coney Shocks Automotive. There's a series of videos there that can give you some more information, a few detail installation videos, as well as just product information videos as well.
Very cool, very cool. Thanks for joining me today, Mason.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
It was great talking technology and customer service with you.
Perfect. Thanks again.
Thanks. The rest of you, drive safely out there.